In the quiet town of Willford, nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, a strange phenomenon has been taking place. For months now, the citizens have reported sightings of unnatural shadows and whispers of voices that seem to emanate from nowhere in particular. The local police have dismissed these claims as nothing more than figments of overactive imaginations, but the townsfolk are convinced something sinister is afoot. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting an eerie glow on the sleepy streets of Willford, a young woman named Kira was making her way home from work. She had just finished her shift at the local diner and was eager to get back to her apartment and relax after a long day. As she turned onto Main Street, she couldn't help but feel a creeping sensation that something was watching her. Despite the increasing unease in her stomach, Kira brushed it off as paranoia and continued on her way. The streets were deserted, with only the occasional car passing by in the distance. Suddenly, without warning, a gust of wind whipped down the street, sending leaves and debris flying through the air. For just a moment, Kira thought she caught a glimpse of something darting out of the corner of her eye, but when she looked again, there was nothing there. As she reached the entrance to her apartment building, she fumbled with her keys, trying to unlock the door in the dim light. Just as she finally managed to open it, another gust of wind swept through the courtyard. She quickened her pace and made her way up the stairs to her apartment on the second floor. Once inside, Kira closed and locked the door behind her, feeling slightly relieved to be out of the chilly night air. As she hung up her coat and purse, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still watching her. She turned around, half expecting to see someone or something lurking in the shadows, but the apartment was empty. Feeling a bit foolish for letting her imagination get the better of her, Kira decided to take a warm shower and then crawl into bed early. As she undressed and stepped into the bathroom, she heard a faint scratching sound coming from somewhere within the walls. Startled, she froze, listening intently. The noise stopped as suddenly as it had begun, leaving only the sound of her own pounding heart in the silence that followed. Kira took a deep breath and reminded herself that it was just an old building settling, nothing more. She finished undressing and stepped into the shower, letting the warm water wash away the tension from her long day. As she stood there under the steady stream of water, she felt something brush against her leg. She jumped back, turning on the light to reveal a small, dark figure crouched in the corner of the room. It had the appearance of a humanoid creature, with hollow black eyes and skin that seemed to shimmer like oil. Before Kira could scream, the demonic creature sprang at her, its long, bony fingers reaching out to wrap around her throat. She fought against it with all her might, but the creature was far too strong. As she struggled for breath, she felt herself being dragged towards the shadows that seemed to be closing in around them. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the demon vanished, leaving Kira alone and gasping for air in an empty shower stall. She collapsed onto the floor, trembling with fear as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. The only explanation she could come up with was that she must have been dreaming or hallucinating due to stress. As time passed, Kira's encounter with the demon began to fade from her memory, replaced by the everyday routine of her life. But for the other residents of Willford, the strange occurrences continued unabated. The town was plagued by a series of inexplicable events, each one more terrifying than the last. One night, as a group of friends sat around a campfire on the outskirts of town, they heard what sounded like someone or something crying in the woods nearby. They cautiously approached the source of the sound and discovered an old woman, huddled against a tree with tears streaming down her face. She seemed to be in a state of panic, mumbling about shadows that were following her everywhere she went. Despite their attempts to comfort her, the woman would not stay long, insisting that she needed to keep moving or the shadows would catch up to her. As she hurried off into the night, the friends exchanged nervous glances, feeling an uneasy sense of foreboding settle over them. They decided it was best to head back to town and leave whatever was happening out here to itself. Another day, a young couple was walking along one of the trails that crisscrossed through the woods surrounding Willford when they heard what sounded like a child's voice calling for help from somewhere up ahead. They followed the sound until they came upon a clearing where they found an abandoned playground overgrown with vines and weeds. As they approached, they saw a small figure sitting on one of the swings, its head bowed low, as if in prayer or despair. The couple called out to the child, hoping to offer assistance, but the figure simply turned towards them, revealing a face that was all too familiar. It was the same demonic creature that Kira had encountered in her shower. The creature let out a blood-curdling scream before disappearing into thin air, leaving the couple cowering in fear and confusion. They hurried back to town, spreading word of their harrowing experience among the other residents, who were already on edge due to all the strange happenings taking place around them. As more and more people reported encounters with these unnatural creatures, it became clear that Willford was under siege by something malevolent and otherworldly. The townspeople banded together, trying to find a way to protect themselves from whatever was preying upon them in the darkness. Some even began to suspect that there might be more to this small mountain town than met the eye, that perhaps it held secrets far deeper than anyone could have imagined. Despite their desperate attempts at resistance, the demons of Havoc continued to wreak havoc on Willford, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in their wake. The townspeople were forced into hiding as the nightly attacks grew more frequent and brutal. Those who had once been neighbors turned against each other, driven mad by fear and desperation. As weeks turned into months, the once quiet streets of Willford became a war zone filled with screams and chaos. The demons seemed to be growing stronger, their whispers now echoing through every corner of the town like an insidious chorus. And then, without warning, everything changed. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, casting its silver light over the town below, a single figure emerged from the shadows and made her way towards the center of Willford. It was Kira, the young woman who had first encountered the demon in her shower. She had been haunted by the memory of that night ever since it happened, feeling as if she was somehow responsible for bringing these creatures into the world. Now, she knew she could no longer sit idly by while her friends and neighbors suffered at the hands of these demons. With determination in her heart, she set out to confront them head-on, armed with nothing more than her own courage and resilience. As Kira approached the town square, where a large gathering of demons had formed, she felt the air around her grow thick with malevolent energy. The demons sensed her presence and turned towards her, their hollow eyes fixated on her like hungry predators. But instead of running or cowering in fear, Kira stood her ground, lifting her head high as she faced them down. "What do you want from us?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the terror coursing through her veins. The demons let out a chorus of laughter, their voices echoing off the buildings surrounding the square. "We want what we have always wanted," one of them hissed, stepping forward to face Kira directly. "Fear, pain, suffering, we thrive on the chaos you humans create for yourselves." Kira took a deep breath, gathering her strength and resolve. "Then I will give you no more," she said, her voice firm and unyielding. "I won't let you destroy my town or its people any longer." The demons exchanged glances among themselves, clearly taken aback by Kira's bravery. For a moment, they seemed unsure of how to react, their usual sense of power and control slipping away from them. And then, Just as suddenly as it had begun, the standoff ended. The demons retreated into the shadows, disappearing from sight in an instant. Kira was left standing alone in the moonlit square, with both relief and disbelief at what she had just experienced. As time passed, the demons did not return to Willford. The town slowly began to heal from the scars of their brief but devastating reign. Kira became something of a local hero, hailed for her bravery and selflessness in facing down the demons single-handedly. She was celebrated as a symbol of hope and resilience in the face of overwhelming darkness. But despite the relief that came with the demons' departure, there were those who remained convinced that they would one day return. While life in Willford continued on its surface, beneath the veneer of normality, a sense of unease lingered, a reminder that even in the quietest corners of the world, darkness can never truly be banished.